"One more word and I break your neck right here," the man growled, his voice like gravel scraping concrete. Marcus Webb froze in the narrow corridor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the reinforced walls. In front of him, a prisoner in orange, hands supposedly cuffed, stared with eyes that burned through the dim light. There was no criminal bravado in that gaze, only raw hatred so thick you could taste it. The old man said nothing. He let the clipboard fall from his hands, the metal clip clattering against the floor like a gunshot in the silence. "I'm just doing my job," he said quietly, voice steady, not breaking eye contact. "Your job got my brother killed?" the prisoner hissed, breathing hard through clenched teeth. Marcus noticed the hands. The cuffs were unlocked, dangling loose. The scars on the knuckles told stories of violence, but the trembling told him something else. This wasn't just rage. This was grief turned weapon. The prisoner wasn't planning murder. He was planning justice. A door slammed somewhere in the distance, echoing through the empty prison wing. The sound made the prisoner's head snap sideways, and for just a moment, Marcus saw something beyond the anger. Fear, real fear, the certainty that someone else was coming, someone worse. Marcus understood then that this transfer wasn't routine. It was a setup, and he had just walked into a death trap meant for both of them. Before discovering what Marcus did next and who was hunting them both, subscribe, leave your like, and comment what country you're watching from. I love knowing. Now stay until the end, because what was about to unfold was more than survival. It was a reckoning 20 years in the making. The silence hung heavy between them like a noose waiting to drop. The air smelled of bleach and old sweat. The buzz of the lights was the only sound until the creak of a distant gate broke through. Marcus didn't move, didn't even blink. He had seen that look before, the look of a man who wasn't fighting to win, but fighting because surrender meant death. But he had also seen liars, plenty of them. "Drop the tough guy act," Marcus said, his voice firm but not threatening. "If you wanted me dead, you would have done it when I walked in." The prisoner's jaw tightened. "And why shouldn't I finish what I started planning the day they locked me up?" Marcus studied him carefully. The man's hands were scarred from fights, not from holding weapons. No tattoos marking gang affiliation, no cold calculation in the eyes, just pain, deep personal pain. "Because if I wanted to leave you to rot, I would have approved your death row appeal rejection myself," Marcus responded evenly. "And because your hands tell me you're not a killer, you're just someone who lost everything." For a few seconds, neither man breathed. Then slowly, deliberately, the prisoner let the loose cuffs fall to the floor. His body sagged against the wall, and he slid down until he sat on the cold concrete. Marcus approached cautiously, still watching, and crouched down to eye level. A scar ran across the prisoner's throat. Old wound, poorly healed. Someone had tried to silence him before. "Who did that to you?" Marcus finally asked. "Castellano," the man whispered. "Vincent Castellano. He said I knew too much about the Riverside job. He set up my brother to take the fall, then had him killed in lockup. I was just the witness who wouldn't stay quiet." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Castellano. He knew that name. A crime boss who had walked free from 3 murder trials. A man who owned half the judges and all the right people. A ghost who left no trails except bodies. He looked at the prisoner a moment longer, then made his decision. Without a word, He helped the man to his feet and guided him toward the transport office. Inside, the room smelled of stale coffee and cigarette smoke. Marcus pulled out a flask from his desk drawer. "Drink, and tell me your name." "Anthony Russo," he answered, voice barely above a whisper. Bang! A gunshot exploded outside the building, so close the windows rattled in their frames. Marcus moved to the reinforced glass and looked out. 3 black SUVs pulling into the loading bay, men in suits stepping out with weapons barely concealed. "You've got company, Russo," Marcus muttered, reaching for the shotgun locked in his desk drawer. "And they're not here for a friendly chat." That evening, the prison transport station became a fortress under siege, and as the sun disappeared behind the razor wire fences, Marcus and Anthony were about to discover they weren't just fighting to survive, but to expose the truth that could bring down an empire. Shadows stretched across the cracked asphalt like dark fingers reaching for them. 3 SUVs sat idling in a perfect blockade, engines rumbling with the patience of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Marcus watched from behind the bulletproof glass, shotgun loaded, his old instincts kicking in like muscle memory. "Don't shoot yet," Anthony said, leaning against the wall, face pale under the harsh lights. "If they wanted us dead immediately, they would have opened fire already. If we wait for them to make the first move, we lose the advantage," Marcus replied. The younger man shook his head. "These aren't regular hitmen. They work for Castellano. If they kill me, it's not about revenge. It's about erasing evidence." Marcus kept his eyes on the figures outside. He recognized the pattern now. Clean suits, coordinated movements, professional silence. Corporate killers, the kind that made bodies disappear into concrete. "What evidence?" he demanded. Anthony grimaced, pressing his hand against his ribs where an old injury still caused pain. "Transaction records, witness statements, proof that Castellano had 12 people murdered to cover up a money laundering operation through the prison system." He paused. "You signed off on some of those transfers, Warden. You just didn't know what you were signing." Marcus felt ice run through his veins. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you were the perfect cover, the honest warden who played by the rules while Castellano moved dirty money and eliminated witnesses right under your nose." Bang! A shot shattered the window. Marcus hit the floor, dragging Anthony behind a metal desk. Glass rained down like razor snow. Another shot punched through the door. "Talk faster, Russo," Marcus shouted over the gunfire. "Why does he want you dead now?" Anthony gasped, blood seeping through his shirt from where he had hit the ground too hard. "Because I copied everything, bank accounts, shell companies, names of dirty guards and paid-off administrators. I was going to testify before they framed me." He pulled out a small flash drive from his sock. "This is why I'm still breathing. Insurance." Marcus stared at the tiny piece of plastic. Then he raised the shotgun, aimed at the closest SUV, and pulled the trigger. Bang! The windshield exploded. The driver dove for cover. "Then let's make sure you live long enough to use it." He fired again. Bang! A tire burst, the vehicle lurching sideways. The other men scattered, taking positions behind concrete barriers. Anthony, hands shaking, found a pistol in the desk drawer and checked the magazine. 3 bullets. "In case you're wondering if my story is real," he said with a weak smile, "now you know." Marcus barely nodded. "Never doubted it. I just needed to know what we're dying for." He pumped the shotgun. "Now I know, and it's worth it." The sun had completely set now, and the prison lights cast everything in harsh white and deep shadow. When they thought they had survived the first wave, a new sound froze them both. Footsteps in the back corridor, too many to be just the men outside. And a voice Marcus hadn't heard in 15 years, smooth and cold as a blade. "Hello, Marcus. Long time since our last conversation." The air turned to ice because that voice belonged to Vincent Castellano himself. And he hadn't come alone. Marcus kept the shotgun leveled at the doorway, his breath coming in controlled measures. Every muscle in his body remembered this moment, had prepared for it in nightmares for years. Anthony, crouched beside the overturned desk, chambered around with shaking hands. "There are more than 3, he whispered. "I count at least 6 separate footsteps." Marcus nodded without looking at him. "I know, 1 with a limp, 2 light steppers, probably ex-military, and 1 heavy, close protection specialist." Outside the back corridor, shadows moved like smoke. A lighter flicked on, briefly illuminating a face. Then Vincent Castellano's voice cut through the darkness again. "Come out, Marcus. I promise this can be civilized. You were always the reasonable one." Marcus' jaw clenched. "Civilized like how you had 12 inmates killed?" "Business," Castellano replied smoothly. "Nothing personal. You know how it works in this world. Sometimes people become liabilities." "And now we're liabilities too," Anthony spat. A soft laugh echoed from the hallway. "The kid's smarter than his brother was. Michael wouldn't listen either. Kept saying he'd go to the press, to the FBI. Made me do something I didn't enjoy." Marcus felt Anthony tense beside him, heard the sharp intake of breath. "You say his name again and I'll put a bullet through that smile," the young man growled. "Easy, Russo," Marcus muttered. "He's trying to make you sloppy." But he understood. The rage, the need for revenge. He had felt it himself once, a lifetime ago. The smell of gasoline suddenly hit them. Marcus' eyes widened. "They're going to burn us out." Without hesitation, he kicked open the side door and fired into the hallway. Bang! The muzzle flash lit up the corridor like lightning. 1 man went down. Bang! Another shot from Anthony's pistol. A second figure stumbled backward. Marcus grabbed the younger man by the collar and hauled him toward the vehicle bay. "Move, now!" They burst through the door into the night air. Bullets ripped through the space where they had been standing a second before. Marcus dove behind a prison transport van, Anthony rolling in the opposite direction behind a concrete pillar. Fire erupted in the office behind them, orange light dancing across the compound walls. Through the smoke and chaos, Marcus saw him, Vincent Castellano, standing calmly near the gate, flanked by 4 armed men. Expensive suit, silver hair, face that looked more like a banker than a killer. Their eyes met across the burning lot. "You cost me a lot of money 15 years ago, Marcus," Castellano called out, "when you refused to look the other way." "And you cost a lot of people their lives," Marcus shouted back. Castellano smiled, cold and empty. "The price of doing business. But you were supposed to be smart. You were supposed to understand that some battles can't be won." "Then you don't know me at all." Bang! Marcus fired. The shot went wide, but close enough to make Castellano's men return fire. The transport van's windows exploded. Anthony leaned out and squeezed off his last 2 rounds. 1 found its mark. A bodyguard dropped. In the chaos of gunfire and flames, Marcus saw something on the ground near the gate. A folder dropped in the confusion, pages scattering in the night wind. transaction records, the same ones Anthony had mentioned. Castellano had brought his own insurance, proof that could destroy them all if it fell into the wrong hands. But what Marcus didn't know was that Anthony Russo hadn't told him everything. The flash drive wasn't just evidence. It was a confession. And the person who had helped Castellano operate inside the prison for 15 years was someone Marcus had trusted with his life. Someone who was about to walk through that gate right now. The flames cast dancing shadows across the compound as Marcus reloaded with practiced efficiency. His hands moved on, autopilot, decades of training taking over while his mind raced. Anthony crouched behind the pillar, weapon empty, breathing hard. "We can't hold them off forever," the younger man gasped. "Then we don't hold. We move." Marcus scanned the area. The east gate was blocked by the SUVs, the west gate was on fire, but the old maintenance tunnel that led under the fence, that was still clear. Probably. "Can you run?" he asked. Anthony nodded, grimacing. "Fast enough." "Then when I say go, you head for the northwest corner. There's a grated entrance behind the generator housing. Follow the tunnel south. It comes out near the rail yard." "What about you?" "I'm going to have a conversation with an old friend." Marcus looked toward the gate where Castellano stood, and that's when he saw her. A figure emerging from one of the SUVs, moving with purpose toward the crime boss. Dark hair pulled back, tactical vest over civilian clothes, sidearm visible on her hip. Marcus' heart stopped. "No," he whispered. Anthony followed his gaze and went rigid. "Who is that?" "Someone I trained, someone I trusted." Marcus' voice was hollow. "Captain Sarah Reeves, my former head of security." The woman approached Castellano, spoke briefly, then handed him something. Even from this distance, Marcus could see what it was. A second flash drive. Sarah turned toward their position, and even through the smoke and firelight, Marcus could see her face clearly. No guilt, no hesitation, just cold professionalism. She cupped her hands around her mouth and called out, "Marcus, I know you're there. This doesn't have to end badly. Castellano just wants the drive. Give it up and walk away." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. "How long, Sarah?" he shouted back. She was quiet for a moment. "Since the beginning, Marcus. Since before you even became warden. Did you really think you got that promotion on merit alone?" The words hit harder than any bullet. Anthony looked at him, saw the devastation on the older man's face. "We need to move," the young man said urgently. But Marcus couldn't move. His legs felt like concrete. 15 years of believing he had built something honest, something clean, and it had all been a lie from the start. "Marcus," Anthony grabbed his arm. "She's moving." Sarah was walking toward them now, gun drawn but pointed down. Behind her, Castellano's men fanned out, cutting off escape routes. "Last chance," she called. "The drive for your lives. Simple math." Marcus looked at Anthony, saw the flash drive still clutched in the young man's hand. Evidence that could destroy Castellano, proof of murders and corruption. But also proof that Sarah Reeves had facilitated it all. Proof that the entire system was rotten. He made his decision. "Go," he told Anthony. "The tunnel, now. I'm not leaving you. You have to." Marcus stood up, shotgun in hand. Someone needs to survive this. Someone needs to tell the truth. He stepped out from behind the van, walking toward Sarah with slow, deliberate steps. She stopped, weapon coming up instinctively. "Don't do this, Marcus. You taught me better than this." "No," he said quietly. I taught you to be better than this. Guess I failed." Bang! The shot came from behind Sarah, not from her gun, from Castellano's position. Marcus felt the impact, hot and sharp, spinning him sideways. He hit the ground hard, vision blurring. Through the haze, he saw Anthony running toward the northwest corner, saw Castellano's men giving chase, saw Sarah standing over him, face finally showing something. Regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." Marcus coughed, tasting copper. "No, you're not. But maybe someday you will be." His hand moved inside his jacket. Sarah tensed, but he wasn't reaching for a weapon. He pulled out a small recorder, the old-fashioned kind, tape still spinning. "Been recording since you arrived," he managed. "Every word, every confession." Her eyes went wide. Behind her, Castellano was shouting orders, but Marcus couldn't hear them anymore. Everything was getting distant, fading like a radio losing signal. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Anthony disappearing into the tunnel, the flash drive safe. The evidence would survive. The truth would get out. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the recorder in Marcus's hand. Around them, the compound burned, sirens wailing in the distance. And Marcus Webb, the honest warden who had been played from the start, finally closed his eyes, knowing that even in failure he had won. But what no one knew yet was that Marcus had made one final move. Before the transfer, before the setup, he had sent copies of everything to someone outside the system, someone who couldn't be bought or threatened. And that person was about to receive a package that would burn Castellano's empire to the ground. The recorder stopped spinning. The compound fell silent, except for the crackling flames. Sarah Reeves looked at the device in her hand, then at the body of the man who had trusted her. She made her choice. She ran. Dawn came slowly, painting the sky in shades of gray and pale orange. The prison compound still smoked, fire crews working to contain the last of the flames. Police tape cordoned off the area, detectives moving through the scene with grim efficiency. Marcus Webb woke in a hospital bed, chest wrapped in bandages, monitors beeping steadily beside him. He was alive, barely, but alive. A nurse noticed him stirring and quickly left the room. A moment later, a federal agent walked in, badge clipped to her belt, expression unreadable. "Mr. Webb," she said formally, "I'm Agent Torres, FBI. We need to talk about what happened last night." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. She poured water, helped him drink. "Anthony Russo?" he finally managed. "Safe. He made it to the rail yard, flagged down a patrol. The flash drive is in federal custody now." Relief washed over him. "And Castellano?" Torres pulled up a chair, her expression hardening. "In custody as of 4 this morning. Turns out someone sent a very detailed package to the U.S. Attorney's Office 3 days ago. Transaction records, witness statements, recordings, everything needed to bring down his entire operation." Marcus closed his eyes. The package, he had done it. Sent everything to the one person he knew would act without hesitation. Federal Prosecutor Diana Chen, the woman he had worked with years ago on a corruption case, the one person outside the system who owed him nothing but had always respected the truth. "Captain Reeves?" he asked quietly. Torres' face darkened. "She disappeared last night. We have warrants out, but so far nothing. She knows how to hide." Marcus nodded slowly. He had expected that. Sarah was smart, trained by the best, by him. But she was also alone now, cut off from Castellano's money and protection. The empire was crumbling, and she was just one more person running from the ruins. "There's something else?" Torres continued. "Anthony Russo wants to see you, says he needs to thank you personally." "No need," Marcus said. "He did the hard part, survived long enough to matter." "He doesn't see it that way." She stood. "I'll send him in." A few minutes later, Anthony Russo walked through the door. He looked different in civilian clothes, younger somehow, the weight of prison life already starting to lift. He stopped at the foot of the bed, struggling for words. "You took a bullet for me," he finally said. "You could have given me up." "No," Marcus replied. "I couldn't. Not after knowing the truth." Anthony pulled something from his pocket, a badge, old, tarnished, the words "Warden" barely visible. "They found this in your jacket. Thought you might want it back." Marcus looked at it for a long moment. That badge represented everything he had believed in, everything that had been corrupted, and everything he had fought to redeem. He reached out, took it, felt the weight of it. "Thank you," he said simply. Anthony nodded. "What will you do now?" "Rest, testify, help put away everyone who needs to be put away." Marcus looked toward the window where morning light was streaming in. "And then maybe find some peace." "You think that's possible, after everything?" Marcus smiled, small but genuine. "I think it has to be. Otherwise, what was it all for?" They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, two men who had survived hell together, bound by truth and circumstance. Finally, Anthony stood to leave. At the door, he paused. "My brother would have liked you, Warden. He always said there were still good ones out there. Guess he was right." Marcus watched him go, then looked down at the badge in his hand. He thought about Sarah, about Castellano, about the system that had tried to break them all. He thought about the cost of doing the right thing when everything around you was corrupt. And he realized something. The weight he had carried for so many years, the guilt of not seeing the truth sooner, of being used as a tool for evil, it was lighter now, not gone, never gone, but manageable. He set the badge on the bedside table, lay back against the pillows, and let his eyes drift closed. Outside, the world continued turning. Sirens wailed in the distance. Life moved forward, and Marcus Webb, the warden who had been betrayed but never broken, finally allowed himself to rest, not in forgetting, but in letting go. If you enjoyed this prison story, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell me what country you're listening from. Every story you share keeps alive the truth that even in the darkest places, one honest person can make all the difference.